The Crown is a series about the history of the 20th century through the eyes of one of the most famous families in the world, the English royal family. At the same time, it's a story about humanity, about questions all of us have to deal with. In the third season, for instance, there is this interesting episode about the exciting relationship between science and religion, Moondust. July 1969, the magical moment of moon landing. The main character of this episode is Prince Philip, the Queen's husband. He's completely taken away by this stunning achievement to land a man on the moon. As a viewer, though, you understand that this fascination is not only about the scientific achievement. You sense that it's connected to the prince's personal life too, his general state of mind. Prince Philip is experiencing a personal crisis, something he will only acknowledge at the end of the episode when he admits there wasn't a specific moment when it started. It's been more of a gradual thing, a drip, drip of doubt, disaffection, disease, discomfort. People around me have noticed my general irritability and inability to find calm or satisfaction or fulfillment. Not really aware of the crisis, he keeps outrunning it. In sports, for instance, compulsive over-exercising, he will call it. But his main refuge is the moon landing. An almost jealous fascination with the achievements of these young astronauts is how he describes it. Now, NASA's technical achievements are contrasted in this episode with the ecclesial world of the Anglican parish of Windsor. The starting point is Philip's aversion to Sunday Mass, something you recognize. The stiff upper lip humour in his conversation with the Queen on their way to the Sunday service is telling. "Why do we do this week in, week out, like lemmings?" he asks. The Queen replies that it's an opportunity to reflect upon the important questions of life. And he reacts, "Except one doesn't. One mainly thinks about what a lot of dreary nonsense the Dean is talking, and why doesn't he shut up?" When we hear the old Dean, we understand completely, as does the Queen. "See, it's not a sermon," Philip whispers, "it's a general anaesthetic." His conclusion is clear. This has been the last time. From now on, I will do something useful as you sit here doing nothing. The Queen's reaction is swift. She replaces the old priest, appointing someone Philip's age. The new dean comes to Philip to ask permission to start a kind of retreat house in an empty building on the domain. "What for?" Philip asks. "Personal and spiritual growth," Dean Woods explains, making clear that he's been noticing how some people of a certain age tend to stumble into a paralyzing crisis. The Dean's Theological and Philosophical Academy would be a place of revitalization. By doing what? The skeptical prince asks. "Talking, reading, thinking," the priest replies, and then the prince becomes somewhat edgy. "May I suggest that your concept is flawed? You don't raise your game by talking or thinking, you raise your game through action." And there you have it. Two worlds opposed to one another. Action on the one side, talking, reading and thinking on the other. The first group will find their champions in the three astronauts, Armstrong, Aldrin and Collins. The other group will be represented by the middle-aged priests who attend Dean Woods' academy. Slightly pushed by the Dean, Philip joins a session of the priests. And there he loses his patience. Uncharacteristically hurtful his language is towards the priests who have gathered to share their personal crises. "I've never heard such a load of pretentious self-piteous nonsense," the prince says. "What you lot need to do is to get off your backsides, get out into the world and bloody well do something. That's why you're all so lost. The prince sighs and continues, I believe that there is an imperative within man, all men, to make a mark. Action is what defines us. Action, not suffering. It's very silent in the conversation circle as the prince goes on ruthlessly. All this sitting around thinking and thinking. Let me ask you this. Do you think those astronauts up there are catatonic like you lot? Of course not. They're too busy achieving something spectacular. And as a result, they are at one with the world, at one with their God. This is the high point of the contrast between Philip's contempt for the religious men and his almost idolizing admiration for his three heroes, whom he watches obsessively on television, visibly touched as they land on the moon. It's almost childlike how the prince wants to get close to them. Literally, as co-pilot in the royal jet, he takes over control and sends the plane way up high, higher than is officially allowed, his eyes focused on the moon. Or when the American stars visit Buckingham Palace, the prince is almost begging for the opportunity to have a private conversation with the astronauts. It's a bit pathetic when, preparing for this meeting, he takes a paper and writes questions. Just one of the questions on this list we get to read. Does man have a destination beyond this planet? It's exactly this question that reveals why the actual meeting turns out to be a complete failure. The young astronauts have absolutely nothing to offer as far as the deeper questions of life are concerned. Who are we? What is the meaning of life? What is our deepest destiny? The encounter is a huge disappointment for Philip. And that brings him back to the religious support group, where for the very first time he admits that he's going through a personal crisis. That there is something missing in his life. Faith. In one of the previous episodes, we had witnessed Philip's mother asking him, how's your faith? Only now, in this circle of people prepared to listen to him, he answers his mother's question. I'm here to admit to you that I've lost it. And without it, what is there? The loneliness and emptiness and anticlimax of going all the way to the moon to find nothing but haunting desolation, ghostly silence, gloom. That's what faithlessness is. In the nick of a time, the moon, that first was the image of meaningful life, has been demoted to an image of empty and meaningless existence. Instead, the prince focuses on wonder, ecstasy, and the miracle of divine creation, God's design and purpose. And he continues, the solution to our problem, I think, is not in the ingenuity of the rocket, or the science, or the technology, or even the bravery. No, the answer is in here, pointing at his head, or in here, pointing at his heart, or wherever it is that faith resides. Philip doesn't contradict the use of science and technology. What he does claim is that life questions that actually matter should be dealt with elsewhere. This conviction brings him to his plea, help me. This theological and philosophical centre of St. George on the Windsor estate, to me, is a formidable image of what the church could and should be. Amidst the world with its own logic, the church has the vocation to be a modest house where people can recharge their batteries and get in touch once again with their personal vocation. The invitation is permanent, but it's okay if you're not quite ready for it. But when the true questions force themselves into your existence, the door is open, and the receptive group of fellow men and women is there to listen. You will have someone to turn to and ask for help. At the end of the episode, we learn that Dean Woods and Prince Philip remain friends their entire life. and that the prince regarded the centre of St. George as one of his greatest accomplishments. Oh yes, and there's more. The old dean, the one who seems to be a bit erratic in the first scenes of the episode, he actually quoted from the Old Testament, Psalm 115. This is a song about the difference between the idols that were made by human hands and the one and only God you can enter into a relationship with. More than Philip could suspect at that moment, the old man was talking exactly about what was missing in the prince's life. Think about that the next time you feel bored at Mass.